All right. I'm going to throw things off just a little bit this morning and say something before we read our Bible lesson. Because we're reading from the Gospel of John, and the Jews show up in this lesson. And that term can be problematic for us as modern Christians because the Gospel of John has been used to foment anti-Semitism in the world. And so it's a phrase that's found throughout the Gospel of John, and it can be used for lots of different people. And the Gospel is actually written to the people who it's written to are all Jewish. Like, there's not a difference. It's not written to Christians and Jews. It's written to, like, they're all Jewish. And so sometimes this phrase, the Jews, is in that gospel to talk about people from an area of, like, geography, people from Judea. Sometimes it's in reference to people who are leaders in the faith community that Jesus is in and teaching and preaching to. And sometimes it is about people who are opposed to Jesus. So it can get confusing because in the Greek and then in the English, it's kind of all the same terminology. So it can be hard to figure out what it's talking about. So I just want to say that when the Jews show up in the Gospel of John, it's not like a particular group of people, and it's not intended to be like representative of all Jews in Jesus' time or in our time or in any time. So it's just important for us to make a note of that because we live on this side of the Holocaust, and anti-Semitism is still real and prevalent. And so we need to just draw our ears' attention to the fact that this isn't like calling out a particular group of people or blaming people for what happened with Jesus. And let's see. In today's Bible lesson, it is important too to note that it is not. I went out of order of what I wrote, so I just want to. Okay, there, it's the last sentence. This Bible lesson does not imply that Judaism is an enslaving religion. And it can sound like that as we get to the end of the reading. Sin is what enslaves us. So we want to be clear about that in our minds before we have the Bible lesson. So with that.
John 8:31 through 36. Then Jesus said to the Jews who had believed in him, "If you continue in my word, you are truly my disciples, and you will know the truth, and the truth will make you free." They answered him, "We are descendants of Abraham and have never been slaves to anyone. What do you mean by saying you will be made free?" Jesus answered them, "Very truly I tell you, everyone who commits sin is a slave to sin. The slave does not have a permanent place in the household. The Son has a place there forever. So if the Son makes you free, you will be free indeed."
Of a beautiful dawn, take me to the place where we came from. Take me to the end so I can see the start. There's only one way to mend a broken heart. Take me to the place where I don't feel so small. Take me where I don't need to stand so tall. Take me to the edge so I can fall apart. There's only one way to mend a broken heart. Isn't up for sale. Take me where our hearts are not so frail. Take me where the fire still owns its spark. There's only one way to mend a broken heart. Teach me how to see when I close my eyes. Teach me to forgive and to apologize. Show me how to love in the darkest dark. There's only one way to mend a broken heart. Close on hand. Take me where the ocean meets the sky and the land. Show me to the wisdom of the evening star. There's only one way to mend a broken heart. Take me to the place where I feel no shame. Take me where our courage doesn't need a name. Learning how to cry is the hardest part. There's only one way to mend a broken heart.
If you stay with me, keep me at the center of your life, you're living... Oh, okay, I'm going to start again. If you stay with me, keep me at the center of your life, living fully with the one who sent me, then in that relationship, you will know who you are, and that will open you up to live fully now. That's a paraphrase or something I rewrote of what Jesus says at the end of today's Bible lesson about being free, right? Because Jesus is challenging the people in front of him and challenging us to lean in and to trust this promise that if we center our lives around Jesus, we will know who we are. There is only one way to mend a broken heart. Yesterday, Holly and Rachel and Catherine Victory and I went to a retreat for the Faith Practices and Neighboring Practices project that we have been a part of for the last 18 months. And we're going to continue in that project for another 6 months or so. And in that retreat, we met on Zoom. We met Daryl and Stephanie, two people who started a church about 9 years ago in Kansas City. And they started the church with their kids and a couple of neighbors. It was a small group, and they started their church. And their church is, I think, a Reformation church. They started by way of creating a play group for kids and parents in their neighborhood, because there wasn't anywhere for people to gather, for their kids to get to know each other, for them to get to know each other. And so they found a spot, and they made a play group in their neighborhood. And then with some of the families that they met through that, they started organizing prayer walks in their neighborhood, because in their part of the city, there were a lot of shootings. And it seemed like, from what they said, it seemed like there were kind of a lot of them near or around their school, their local school. And so they gathered at the school with their kids and their strollers and the scooters and all the things that kids and parents and neighbors need to walk. And they prayed as they walked. There's only one way to mend a broken heart. And in this church community in Kansas City, they share meals. They started sharing meals because Daryl and Stephanie are committed to building up the community development, not just by serving some people, but by everyone contributing what they can. And so while there were lots of people in their neighborhood, or some people in their neighborhood, who received services in other areas of their life, they brought food to share too. And so they feed one another. There's only one way to mend a broken heart. Their church organizes cash mobs. This is a new term to me, but people save up their dollars, they make their shopping lists, and then together they go to a local store with their cash, and they get what they need from their local store. They spend their cash in their neighborhood. There's only one way to mend a broken heart. Daryl and Stephanie's church doesn't have a building. They meet primarily in one another's homes, and then about once a month they gather for a collective worship service, and they share meals. And they talked about how during the pandemic, once it was safe to gather together outside, they gathered in someone's yard, somebody who loved to host events, right? And somebody who smoked meat, and they gathered and they played a mega mix of music. They had music going, they had good food, they had a place to be together safely. And they talked about how across the street from that house was a house where it was chaotic. Kids in that home were involved in violence in the neighborhood. People were coming and going all the time. It was not a stable situation. Lots of unknowns. And in time, folks from that house across the street started coming over to the mix, sharing a meal. They played a mega mix of music. They supported someone from the neighborhood who made that food. They ate together, and they built up their community. There's only one way to mend a broken heart. 3 years ago, this church started what they call the East Side University, training youth in their neighborhood to see their neighborhood through a lens of abundance, to see what's strong, not what's wrong, right? And these young folks learn how to talk with their neighbors and to invite their neighbors to share their gifts and talents. And through this, these young adults learn to see their community in a different way, to see what is good and strong. Their first summer, they started with 2 kids, and they said by the end of the summer, they had 25 kids in their dining room or their living room. And here's what he said about it. Daryl said, "It was wild." The group that they worked with this last summer divided up into 2 groups as they went out. And they named their own, they named themselves. And so one group called themselves the Dreamers, and the other group named themselves the Game Changers. They went out into their neighborhood and had conversations. So these young adults see themselves and their neighborhoods differently now, and some of them are the very same folks who were involved in these shootings and violent activities in their neighborhood. And one young adult in that group, in the process of meeting neighbors and interviewing and having conversations with them, met their dad. Someone they hadn't seen for years. And through that conversation and process, the young adult, the child, was able to help their dad see his gifts and talents and skills that he had to share. There's only one way to mend a broken heart. Daryl and Stephanie's church is called New Community Church, has a revolving loan fund. It's a 0% interest loan program for people in their community who need to borrow some money. The person who borrows the money sets the repayment terms, And then they tend to pay the loans back within a year. Wow. There's maybe more than one way to mend a broken heart. Right? And this is not easy work. Daryl shared with us that he has seen things a person should not see. He has complex PTSD, and their family, as he said, has seen some things. And still, their presence was true. I felt as if we were hearing Jesus speak these words from our Bible lesson today through them. Something like this, Jesus saying, if you stay with me, keep me at the center of your life, living fully with the one who sent me, then in that relationship, you will know who you are. And you will open up to live fully now. There's only one way to mend a broken heart. That kind of relationship that Daryl and Stephanie told us about, the relationship they have with their neighbors in their neighborhood, that's the kind of relationship freedom that Jesus is inviting us into. It's messy. It's hard. There's not always a clear path forward, but there are options. We can look, and there is someone that we meet or will meet who has an idea or a problem that we can solve together. It's not about me solving your problem for you. It's about me walking with you as we solve those problems that we encounter. And we can get so stuck in our old ways. That's the sin that Jesus is talking about in John. It's our tendency to not to lean in, but to lean back and to stay safe and to keep people and God at a distance so that we don't get hurt or that we don't risk too much of ourselves. Instead, Jesus challenges us and invites us to, and Jesus throughout John says, stay with me. Stay. You will know who you are. And that will open you up to live life fully now. Stay with me. It's not an easy thing, and it's not a quick thing. This is 100-year work. And there's only one way to mend a broken heart, so we don't feel so small, so we don't need to stand so tall, so we can go to the edge where we can fall apart. We can experience where love isn't for sale. Our hearts aren't so frail. We learn to forgive and apologize, to find love in the darkest dark, to feel no shame, and to be in a place where courage doesn't need a name. So hear these words Jesus is calling and challenging to you. If you stay with me, keep me at the center of your life, living fully with the one who sent me, then in that relationship you will know who you are and will be opened up to live fully now. May it be so.